time you click go live, it goes, are you ready to go live? You can go, not yet. Then why did you click the button? Was that an accident? Did you do that by accident? Is that what it's saying? But no.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So let's start with the non-spoiler, because it's not really a spoiler. I'm going to ask you the same thing I always ask you, which is to introduce yourself and then to say what out of stars you gave Dead or Alive. Becca?
Right, well, hi, I'm Becca, and I gave it 4 stars.
4 stars. Interesting. And Lizzie?
Hi, I'm No, sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Hi.
I'm Lizzie, and I also gave it 4 stars. But I also have something else to add because I wasn't here last time.
Yeah, that's the other thing about this being like a not spoiler thing is Lizzie's got some things to say about Seasons of War because they weren't here for the live show. So,
and they're nothing to do with Seasons of War, funnily enough.
No,
you decided to have a conversation about Benedict Cumberbatch when I wasn't here, and I felt very upset that happened because I also love Benedict Cumberbatch, and I was like, oh, interesting. And then the second thing was my taken name. You were all talking about what your taken names would be, although Hannah never revealed hers, so we must pry that out of Hannah from her cold dead hands because I'll be murdering her. Ha 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 ha. But my taken name would be from Lord of the Rings, although Hannah disagrees.
Yeah,
but my taken name would be Arwen Evanstar because
I feel like when you told me that, I had the same reaction Tanith has to Luke Skywalker, which is just I'm not calling you that. Like that's not, and then I feel like Danny was very much the skullduggery and the we'll try not to get sued type scenario, you know?
Yeah. But I just thought I needed to say that because I was like, you talked about all of this and I was not here. I'm never going to have a social life ever again because I miss out on fun conversations like that.
See, I decided to change my idea for my name because I said Doctor Strange originally and then Scarlet Witch, and then I went, no, Polaris Witch, because Polaris is another one of my favourites.
That's a good one though, because that's like a mixture. I like that.
Yeah, because Polaris is Wanda's sister, kind of, and she's like Magneto. She can control metal, and she's the reason why my hair's green because I was going to cosplay as her at 2019 Comic Con, but it was too hot.
And you've just kept your hair green ever since, out of solidarity.
I really like it, and also green is awful to try and get out. So I just went, well, I'll just put the other colours underneath here and just go green for the rest of the time.
That's fair. It suits you, to be fair. I didn't realise that you'd done it as like a cosplay thing. I thought you were just like, green's cool, because green is cool.
No, I was going to do it for the cosplay.
That's fair.
That was 3 years ago.
Was there something else you wanted to add, Lizzie, about Seasons of War? I feel like, I can't remember, there was definitely a third thing, because it was Benedict Cumberbatch. It was...
Taken names.
And then there was something else.
Oh, I really liked Serpine because that really annoyed Hannah, and I very much enjoyed his return. I just loved how sassy he was the entire time, and he was like trying to bait someone to punch him the entire time, and I was just like, I get that energy. I feel like I am that person. I am the gremlin in the corner that doesn't shut the fuck up.
No comment. Right. So we can now go on to spoiler discussion. Now, again, I'm going to start with you, Lizzie, because I feel like even if I want to do my stuff chronologically like I usually do, if I wait to discuss your vindication, I think you might explode. So we meet a particular character in Dead or Alive that Lizzie predicted back in like book 8, book 7.
When she was born.
The day she was born. Yeah.
I predicted that Alice, Valkyrie's little sister, was going to be evil. Lo and behold, in this book, who turns out to be evil? Oh, yes, the evil, creepy child that is Alice. And she changes her name to Malice. Woohoo! Original. But she was still...
I've got thoughts around this, right? Because I feel like one of two things happened. Either Derek Landy went, okay, well, I want my villain to be called Malice. So I want, like, Valkyrie's villainous sister is going to be called Malice. So Alice works for, like, her human name. Or it was like, no, it's going to be a running inside joke for Derek Landy that Alice does not have a creative bone in her body. Unlike Valkyrie Kane, who pulls it from like multiple things and like nostalgia, and it's just like Alice Malice. That works. And just do it, you know?
Or she was too young when it happened and she just went, Malice, it'll work. It's close enough.
Maybe, but she, like, you know, Valkyrie was 12.
11.
Yeah. So around the same age as her sister is now, right? Like, I can't remember how old her sister is in this.
I think she's about 8, isn't she?
I thought it was less time than that, because I know that when she's 16 is when like Valkyrie had like seen the prophecy, and I thought she was like, no, she must be 10 because she wanted to jump 6 years into the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she must have been 10. Look at me doing quick maths.
I've got until the end in my head. I'm getting confused.
No. Oh, interesting.
No,
See, this is why, Becca, I don't read the next book until we've done the live show.
the book arrived. Did you want me to just ignore it for another week? It wasn't happening.
I don't know if something this vibrant can be ignored.
No, it arrived. I was practically Gollum at my front door until it arrived.
That does
like
not surprise me. I'm not surprised in the slightest by that.
Annoyingly, mine went on a magical mystery tour around several other places and got rerouted, so I was basically just refreshing the Royal Mail page like, come on, get in now! Like,
I've heard that if you refresh that page and really shout at your computer, it does make the postman who doesn't know you exist work harder.
yeah, I know. I have figured out that the universe does work when I shout at it quite a lot. I've basically become Donna Noble.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I shout at a lot of things, and then suddenly things happen. So I'm like, okay, then I'll just carry on doing this.
And then suddenly things happen. Fair.
I'm very sad that Abby is not here though, because I need to congratulate Abby on her poker face the entire time I've brought up the Alice is evil theory, because my God, I wouldn't have been able to hold it the entire time, because I did bang on about it. And honestly, I don't want to play poker with Abby ever because I would lose.
I'll lose. Yeah, no, straight up. Because I don't really have a poker face either, I don't think. I have to grin to kind of like as a front to stop. Like, so that's, but no. Expertly done as always. And Abby has said that she's hoping to join, but she's got some family stuff she needs to deal with first. So she may be joining us later. She might not. Just see how we go. I kind of wanted Abby to be here because Abby is the one with the list of predictions that I made about Dead or Alive. First of which, I very specifically remember saying that I predicted in Dead or Alive that the government and church were going to become one state. That's happened, and that is terrifying. It became very quickly a dystopia. I think like between like 2 books, it's now solidly a dystopia. So what did you like, considering I know all 3 of us have read quite a few like dystopic books anyway, like Hunger Games and things like that. What do you think of the way Derek Landy has crafted this horrible world?
It felt sort of a bit too not close to reality, but you know what I mean. It was just a bit like, this is a bit
Uncanny Valley type thing.
Yeah. That was a bit too Uncanny Valley for me. I was a bit like, this is creepy. I don't like this.
Interesting.
I liked Damocles Creed as the dystopian villain we all know. He was very reminiscent of like other kind of world leaders, aren't they? And I don't know, he's just so nefarious, and the way he does things, and like his speech about like is so sneaky about making church and state the same, and how it kind of got so many people on side so quickly. And I think I agree with Becca actually about the kind of uncanny valley of like it's almost too close to what we already know. So I thought that was expertly done. But I didn't really read it as if I was reading a dystopia. So when you said it, I was like, oh shit, yeah, no, it was a dystopia, wasn't it? So that kind of tells you what I thought of it, because I didn't even realise I was reading a dystopia. So
also, it was quite interesting because you suddenly realise as well, Derek Landy wrote this during lockdown. And obviously you've got the curfews and all the rest of it, and you can start to see the real world, like what's been going on while he's writing it, sort of starting to slip into this.
Yeah, I think that's probably why it creates such an uncanny valley in the first place, because you can see where he's based it on like real things, like the religious totalitarianism for a start we've seen that countless times in history. That's a real thing that's happened, and it's always kind of incorporated in a we're just trying to keep you safe, we're just trying to like protect you kind of vibe. And I think the thing that I found really jarring is that this has not been a dystopic series, right? And yet everything that has happened has been a step towards this outcome. There was like, Tanith fighting against China because she didn't want China to have absolute power. All the other sanctuaries like kind of aiming for Ireland because Ireland has such like a bedrock of magic, like all these other things. There's this constant battle for power, and like it makes sense that it would end this way, like that it would kind of become this society. But I think that's the thing, is the fact that you don't necessarily like objectively look at it and go, oh, this is a dystopic novel. Because if someone goes, oh, Hannah, can you recommend me a dystopia to read? I can't be like, yes, pick book 14 out of 15 up, because then it suddenly becomes like, because book 1 isn't, and book 5, 6, 7, 8 isn't. There are dystopic worlds that they visit. There are other realities that they visit where it is true and it has happened. And I find that all really like fascinating. And like, we know that Flannery is based on Trump. We know that Damocles Creed is based on...
Also, you say that, but it threw me through a loop when Trump was mentioned multiple times in this book.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, hold on. I was like, wait, no, you can't have Donald Trump and Flannery. No, if they meet in a room, the world will collapse because they're the same person.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I thought it was really interesting because it was one of those things where like it's clearly been hinting that Flannery is Trump for a while, but just the fact that it's now, oh no, but Trump is also a terrible person that exists in this universe, I thought was really fun. I just thought that was really, really clever. But yeah, dark and sad. Sad and moody.
But
my
also,
favorite...
oh, Lizzie, go on.
My favorite bit about the state and the church becoming the same, though, was the resistance that rose up. So like Temperfro getting all his buddies and like going through like his contact in like the police force. I was like, I love this. This is like my favorite thing ever. Like trying to get all the people that they know are going to get arrested out. I was like, this is what I like to see. Yeah. Our heroes actually doing something heroic for once.
Yeah, and like truly heroic as well, because they're putting themselves in harm's way to get people out. Yes. And yeah, no, fantastic. What were you saying?
I was going to say it was quite sort of foreboding as well, seeing it slightly tip into Universe X as well, because obviously that's how the other universe was, and I was like, this isn't going to end well if we're getting into that sort of territory.
Yeah, and especially because you think it's going to be one person. What I liked about this is the entire narrative is that it's never just one person, because they've been fighting against Malevolent, right? And the potential new Malevolent. And then they removed Malevolent, and then they're like, oh, but there's this whole structure in place. And again, to bring it back to like Hunger Games, that was the thing that made Suzanne Collins decide that she wanted to make it a trilogy, not a standalone. That and probs the money, is the fact that she said that she wrote that scene at the end where they're in the elevator, and she went, there's no way she'd get away with this. Like the structure that's in place, Katniss would never get away with this. And I feel like that is also essentially what this entire book is about, is it doesn't matter that you remove one person. There's a whole structure in place. You have to remove a lot more pieces than that. And I thought that was really interesting as well. Because like, the thing is, I don't like heavily political books, but you also cannot fully flesh out a world without understanding how the politics of your world work. Like that should be on the writer, not on the reader. So the fact that I can sit here and be like, excellent work as usual, Mr. Landy.
I think it's interesting when we look at the politics, though, because China, although it is wanting absolute power, doesn't overtly go for it in the same way. And like, it's interesting, like right at the end, obviously, she's really pissed off with Damocles, right? She's like, what the fuck? And like goes and goes and lets out Tanith. And so then Tanith has had this whole thing against China, but then they realize they're actually on the same side. And I kind of loved that actually Tanith had this kind of skewed view of China and wanted her to be off the chessboard, as it were. And then Tanith almost got a taste of what it would be like without China and like how much worse it really is. Yeah. So I found that interesting, and I found interesting that they had to medically induce China to get anywhere where they wanted.
Yeah.
That was next level like shite there, but I enjoyed the reunion of China and Tanith a lot.
But with that medically induced coma as well, just how much did they have to pump into her? Because the problem is that China is so powerful that you would have to, like, she surely has some level of like sigils on her that sort of goes against this kind of thing and stuff like this. So you've got to think they must have put enough sedative in her to take down a horse and like possibly actually a herd of elephants, just to sort of
a whole herd. Yeah, no, you're right. She's incredibly powerful, and the fact that she would probably recognize a psychic attack, which Damocles' Creed does and doesn't recognize happening to himself, I think is also really interesting, because obviously she is more powerful in that regard than he is, but he thinks he has more pieces on the board than she does. And yeah, I thought all of that. Well, he had to get rid of her. She was his biggest problem, because everything else kind of like falls into place after that.
It sort of reminds me a little bit of that bit in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where it flashes back after Hydra's been like taken over, and the bad guy in question is running it all. Goes, why didn't we do this sooner? And they go, sorry, had to wait for Peggy to retire. It's sort of like that kind of thing of they've got to make sure that someone is completely and utterly off the board, and it's just one woman who's holding this back. It's just like,
we had to wait for her to retire. Yeah.
It just reminded me so much of that moment. And I was like, I want these two to meet just to see what would happen.
The world would explode.
Yeah, probably.
Or they would take over. Like there's no in between. Either it would be suddenly run beautifully, or the world would explode.
One would take the sorcerer side, the other one takes the mortals. Everything's fine.
Yeah. So did you want me to go through list by list, or do you want to keep doing it as we're doing and just kind of pick out random things that you thought were interesting?
We'll go for the list, and then if we move on to other stuff that's already on your list, then cool.
If you go through the list, that is the safe zone in my head, so I know, right, that's the bit we're talking about. I cannot mention this stuff because I read both books in the space of 2 weeks, and the grimoire in the middle, I'm a bit...
That's my thing, is like every now and then I'm like, okay, but that's in the grimoire, that's not in. And because the grimoire is really tough anyway, because it's basically just the entire story rehashed, and we will have a whole separate live for that, which probably won't be as long as the usual lives are, but I just wanted us to have like a little moment with it. But yeah, so the first thing I've got is chapter 1, ninjas. That's all I wrote. Ninjas, because we've seen like a couple of ninjas like show up before, but obviously they're looking for this Eye of the Saints gem thing. I love anytime Derek Landy goes, here's a thing that you think in passing is just like a little MacGuffin. Oh no, it's the MacGuffin. Oh, okay, sweet. So thinking like back in hindsight, the fact that in chapter 1 there's like ninjas going for this thing, all these different sorcerers trying to like get hold of this crystal. I thought that was really fun. But I just think it really tickled me that there were ninjas specifically mentioned, because we've seen cults, we've seen like human hunts, we've seen like all these other things. And I feel like Derek Landy was like, yes, it is time to bring the ninjas back.
I found it hilarious that an entire band of ninjas had to go after this one man who clearly was completely not able to look after himself in any situation, which makes it even funnier that he's been completely slipping through Valkyrie and Skullduggery's fingers, because Skullduggery and Valkyrie have shown themselves to be very able to catch people. So it really made me laugh that again he escaped, and it wasn't just from Valkyrie and Skullduggery, but the ninjas too.
And he escapes a couple of times, because when they're at the
magic place,
magic conference, he slips the net there as well. We will get to the magic conference, because I thought that whole thing was very funny. But the next thing on my list is that Never and Olga broke up, and that Never then immediately starts flirting with Omen. And I literally just wrote like, no, didn't like that. I didn't understand why, if you've gone out of your way to keep your relationship with your best friend's brother secret, you then accidentally reveal it to them and then you break up like a week later. I was like, and I get that obviously we discover later that Olga is going through some stuff. I actually wrote next to it depression, because I thought he's definitely suffering from some kind of like depressive episode or PTSD from killing somebody. But I just thought Never once again proving that they are the scummiest character in all of Scott Daggery Pleasant.
Did they actually flirt? I don't remember them flirting with Omen. Genuinely, I don't. Like, genuinely, that I either forgot that happened or I've scrubbed it from my brain because I hated it.
I can find it. I did make a note that it was in chapter 2. So talk amongst yourself and I'll try and find the thing that made me think it.
I also think it's interesting that Never is so scummy because they're the only transgender character we've seen so far. I think it's very interesting that they're acting in this way with that representation. It's the only thing in all of Derek Landy's stuff that I'm not sure how I feel about it. Because normally, like everything else, he's great with representation. It's the one thing, it's the one sticking point. I'm like, why is Never such trash, though? You know?
It was this bit, right? So it's that whole conversation where it's like, you're looking well, thank you. And now it's your turn to say something complimentary about me. Oh, I like your hair. You've already said that. So, yes, am I identifying as male or female? I love how polite and awkward you get when you ask me that. And pronouns, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, was I ogling? Everyone ogles me, Omen. I'm intensely ogleable. Not sure that's a word, but I'm okay. Never, you're really smart. Thank you. And confident, yes. And I wish I could like you more. And Never blinked. Oh. And it's that bit that's like, what? Was that wrong? No, Never said. That was lovely. And it's that was the bit that was like, oh, Never is looking for Omen's attention. And like the thing that is for me is Never really strikes me as one of those people that intentionally dates popular people to feel popular themselves, because we've already seen in previous books, like Omen has specifically said that Never went out with the jocks and Never went out with that person and this person and that person's really beautiful. And even Never's like, I'm super confident and like sexy and whatever. And then when Omen's just like, oh, I wish I could like you more, and Never's just like, well, shit. Like, it's just that kind of like the first rejection they've probably had. And that was why like the whole thing made me feel really ick, because I thought, if you've dated someone's sibling, you don't get to then flirt with their sibling immediately afterwards. Like, that's weird to me.
Let alone their twin.
Yeah, and it's like, for me, Never is just such a clout chaser. And they just give me the ick. They give me the ick. But
how do you feel about it? Because before you found it, I was saying to Becca, it's interesting because Derek Landy with representation is normally super fucking on the ball. And this is the one character I'm struggling with because they're, as far as I remember, the first openly trans person in this book. And again, the series. I don't remember being introduced to any other trans characters. So why is the one trans character in the whole series complete trash? And it's the one time with Derek Landy that I'm almost struggling with because I can't figure out why he chose a trans character to be an absolute or like non-binary, I guess.
I was gonna say, I would say they're not trans, they're non-binary. And I don't know if I know they're the first non-binary character for sure, and certainly gender fluid because they change their pronouns every other week. They're certainly not the first queer coded character.
No, they're not the first queer coded. But this is what I mean.
But that's a really good point, because like I don't know if it's necessarily overt homophobia, but it definitely thinks of like something in that.
Not at all.
You know,
it's the only thing with, because as I said, representation. I love that his Valkyrium and Mertzia. I love that bi relationship. I'm pretty sure because that whole conversation happens, and I loved that. I think it was really well written. But this, it's the one thing that I'm sticking on because I can't figure out why, in particular, that person he chose to be acting in this way is the one character that I know is non-binary and has all these gender fluid stuff, and it's the only thing I'm sticking on. Because I was saying,
there is something weirdly ick about it. Because I was thinking, as I was listening to it, because I listened to the audiobook on the way down from Folkestone, and I was like, why are all the gay couples women? Like every couple that is not heteronormative are women, except for Never, who's non-binary or gender fluid, and Olga, which kind of is on the line anyway. But I was like, all the other relationships that are mentioned are women and women. There aren't any, like, there have been mentions previously in previous books of male-male relationships, but something's happened within that relationship. Someone's gone missing, someone's been turned into a monster, whatever it was. So I don't know. But to be fair, you know, non-binary and gender fluid people can also be trash. So I'm like, is the rep we asked for? Like, I don't know.
I'm not saying that there aren't trashy non-binary people, but it's just really strange to me that it's a facet of Never's personality that they're very open about, and they're just really shit people. I'm just like, why did you? Okay, you could have just made one of Olga's other friends that trashy asshole friend. Like, you didn't need to make them the same person, because Olga has multiple friends. Omen knows multiple people, so to me, it's just the one thing that I'm like, ooh, I don't know how to feel about it. And it's been a little bit.
No, it is bizarre, and it's like, because Never's been trash from the start, right? Like, I feel like I've had the ick from Never even before I didn't care about Omen. Like, way back when I was like, I mean, Omen is really boring. In like book 9 or 10 or whatever it is, I was like, I just don't care about this kid, and now I'm like, I would die for him. And Never hasn't. I don't know if it's necessarily that Never is trash, because Never doesn't do anything specifically to Omen. It's just the way they kind of behave, like, around them, like the way they speak to him, kind of thing. And like the fact that like they went in for the hug and then like yeeted themselves out, like things like that bother me. But so I don't know if it's like something specific, and maybe that's why I'm struggling with it, and why you're struggling with it as well. Is like, there's no like specific thing. It's no prejudice. It's just that Omen is the shat on character. Like, everyone comes for Omen, and I just felt like maybe I wanted to see that their best friend wasn't like that and never continues to be like that. But not just with Omen, but with everybody, basically. And I don't know. Yeah, no, I think it's worth discussing that the only openly non-binary character.
And I guess it could be literally nothing more than, well, I needed Omen to have a trashy best friend and like a bad best friend, and I also wanted like an interesting facet of them, and so they can do an interesting talk about non-binary, because there is, like, with Omen's whole like, are you identified as male or female, is literally because Omen doesn't want to upset Never, right? So I don't know if that's like trying to normalize those conversations. I think DeaD is probably trying to do it from that angle. But it's something that we haven't mentioned yet about that facet. And I was like, we were talking the other day about how unproblematic this series is. But then the more I thought about that conversation after we had it, the more I went, I found something that bothers me. And if we hadn't had that conversation about how unproblematic Skull Dragon Pleasant was, I probably wouldn't have even fucking thought about it. But because we did, I was like, oh, but actually...
so your gremlin brain was like, I will find something.
Yes, because I have a gremlin brain that won't not do that.
That's fair enough.
But yeah, that's all. I just had to bring it up. So,
but speaking of, though, the representation, what did you guys think of the conversation between Beryl and Valkyrie? Because I remember when my brother read this book months ago, he said that it really like got under his skin that Beryl kept getting their sexuality wrong, like intentionally being like obtuse about it.
It was very reflective of what most people, like a lot of people I know and myself, have had those conversations with family members, and they're all over a certain age, right? You know, when you know who you're going to talk to, and you just know it's either not worth bringing up, or you know you're going to bring it up to fuck with them, right? Because that's what I do with my older aunties and uncles, because I can just watch them try and figure out the way to be least offensive as they can be, which is never how it goes down. So I mean, it was just very much of I've been there. Yeah, cool, good.
Relatable.
And again, it's another thing I thought DeaD did very well, because he wasn't shying away from the fact that these things happen. Like, of course, Valkyrie's parents are very supportive, but not all family members will be, and that's a very real stance to have. I don't know. It was interesting.
At the same time, did you expect anything else from Beryl, who is such an arsehole of a character anyway? It was like,
no, she wanted to get more than the brooch, didn't she? At the right beginning. So she's like, no, my someone's dead, but I want more from the inheritance. So yeah, of course I expect Beryl to be a complete dick.
Oh,
It
this is-
almost feels almost like her sitting there going, well, I'm not happy, so I'm not going to let you be happy either. Because I feel like maybe her and Fergus's relationship is maybe not that, is definitely not healthy.
I don't know if it was like, well, you can't be happy because I'm not happy. For me, it's that meddlesome, like, parent figure or authority figure that goes, I'm sorry, you don't fit in the box that I've put you in. Unacceptable. You must fit into the box. As opposed to going, well, maybe this box is inadequate and we don't need to do that. Like, it's that kind of thing. And it always like kills me when people are like, oh, well, now you've told me this thing about you, I don't know how to speak to you. Because, like, you know, Fergus just like sitting on the chair and lesbian, like whatever it was that he does, or like shouts gay or whatever. I just remember being like, how anally retentive do you have to be like, well, now that I know this thing about you, I can never speak to you like a human being ever again. Like, I don't, what? That was my perspective. But then as the token straight in this house, I don't know. Maybe it's just, it's not that big a deal, is it? Like, if someone likes who they like, it's not hurting me, is it? So, I don't know. I did really enjoy, though. I did really enjoy the fact that Beryl was like, we should have put it in the yearly newsletter. Why didn't we know?
Oh my god, that gave me flashbacks because my family have a yearly newsletter. Not our branch of the family. My cousins and my aunt sends a daily a Christmas newsletter. And honestly, it's the most boring thing ever. And it's like, I just don't care. Oh, look, another cousin has had a baby. Good. Not me, though. So.
Not me, though. Would never.
Yeah.
Okay, can we set up a yearly newsletter for...
No.
Oh.
No. We will get a Christmas card to this house this year. And it will have the newsletter in. So you'll be able to laugh at my stupid family's news.
Wait. Can't wait.
It's the worst.
Next on my list is that I called it about the super age growth thing that Darkest does. Because as if she was actually going to be a baby for an entire book. Although that would have been really funny.
Of course she was going to grow up super quick, otherwise that would have been really boring. But also, she probably would have destroyed the house. Because she's a baby.
Because she's a baby. I really liked that she very much has the, yes, I'm an adult, but I'm a toddler in an adult's body type thing of being like, I want to break the thing to learn about the thing, right? So she like turns chairs into puppies and like, but I thought what was really interesting is when Sebastian Tao kind of like loses his will with her after she lets people die. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to her. And he's just like, I know what you did. You did it because you wanted to see what would happen.
I thought it was interesting when she was like wanting to go out and play with children, and he was like, I don't think that's a good idea. And she's like, no, it's fine. And then she went and played with Alice, and I was like, interesting choice, Darkest. Like, I'm not 100% convinced why you did that, because you didn't even do anything nefarious. Like, what was the point? Like, I know you don't want to be a child, so that was just a bit weird to me. And then she pops back and it's like, yeah, had a great time. What? And yeah, when she let the Darkest Society die, or at least 3 of them, I was a bit like, oh, that's not what you were here to learn, was it, Darkest? That's the
exact opposite.
And I just love how Sebastian just gets more and more just like fraught whenever Darkest does anything, because you can just tell by his mental exhaustion of like, why was I landed with this? Why did she choose me?
The thing is, it kills me because there's like, obviously everyone watching this should know in advance that I have the theory that Sebastian Tao and Omen Darkly are the same person from different timelines or different universes, etc. And there is a moment where Sebastian Tao pats himself on the back for being a good dad, then thinks about his own dad and makes himself sad. And I was like, yeah, thank you. More evidence that it is definitely Omen Darkly. Like,
see, I thought that. I was right up there with you on the Sebastian as Omen train. I really, really was, because they was having the whole book structure. When it was Omen's chapter, it was a Sebastian chapter straight away. Like, I was there. I was like, there's all these like, what's it called? Structural kind of like clues But like now, I'm fully convinced it's Olga. Like it's going to take some convincing. If it's not Olga Darkly, then fine. It can I'd be fine if it's a Darkly brother. If Sebastian is a Darkly brother, I will be happy either way because I think there's loads of Omen stuff. But because Olga is changing his name, and I feel like Becca knows, which is why Becca's making a face, which is really fucking funny. But I am convinced it's
I've lost my poker face ability right now.
Yeah.
But like,
I'll distract from Becca a little bit because I literally just had this phone call conversation with my brother, and he pointed out that and he hasn't read Grimoire, so I can trust that this is in like the actual books. He mentioned that Skullduggery mentions that he still has a brother alive, and that it's his theory that if it's not one of the Darkly brothers, that it's another version of Skullduggery Pleasant. Or his brother.
That was one of my theories as well while reading this book. I was like,
But I don't think the way that Sebastian Tao reacts to Darkess is so very similar. And also, structurally, Omen and Sebastian chapters are always next to each other.
No, and that's why I was fully with you. I was fully with you until certain events happened and certain things Olga did in this specific book that I was like, maybe it's Olga though. Maybe. I don't know. I'm having an existential crisis about the Darkly brothers.
My other theory was that it could be Crepuscula or Crepuscula, however you pronounce it. Sodding that. I call him Crepuscula because I'm dyslexic, so my whole
Crepuscula. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, because I was like, but what if this is like another version of him? Because obviously we've now got wibbly wobbly timey wimey all over the place stuff, so we can have multiple versions of the same character running around.
Yep.
Derek Landy's watched too much Avengers Infinity War and Endgame in my mind.
Pot kettle. May I introduce you to?
Yeah, all right. But he's definitely
way more Doctor Who than Infinity War and Endgame. It stunk of Doctor Who to me.
I guess just with Endgame because they're literally jumping back in time to get a thing to fix the future. I feel like that's fair.
Like multiple Thanoses and Nebulas and Gamoras and all the rest of it. That's where I'm coming from with that. But what I'm saying is that I thought maybe because Crepuscula or whatever his sudden name is, because he's got to hide his face and all the rest of it, I'm like, could this be another version of him who's got to wear the plague mask and everything to keep himself alive or something, while maybe he heals enough to become Crepuscula? Just throwing that in.
See, now I don't know because you've read until the end. If you're just throwing us off now, like this is the trouble because I know you know. So I'm like,
if anyone was going to do that, it'd be Becca. So I don't think it's Crepuscula.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm just.
I mean, it's an interesting theory, but I don't believe you.
I don't think you would posit it as a theory in front of two people that haven't read the book yet. I don't think you're that nasty.
No, I'm not that nasty.
Although having said that, admittedly, during the last live, you mentioned something about Melitza, and I was like, I had heard from Kieran that Melitza dies in this book. So I spent the entire book being like, that's foreshadowing Melitza dying. That's foreshadowing Melitza dying. And like, obviously Melitza gets attacked, but doesn't die. And I was like, wait, she's alive? I don't understand. But I remember like knowing, like saying that. And then you said something during the live and I called you out after the live being like, you can't say that because I know something that is affected by that. And like, don't get me wrong, she is attacked. And I think it was mainly more that I just misunderstood what my brother had said, or that she was like, she was going to die and didn't because of like the big thing or whatever. But like, I fully was like, that's going to be the thing that sends Valkyrie over the edge. Valkyrie goes over the edge all on her own, apparently, so that's fine. But it was just like, in that moment, I was like, you can't do that, Becca. So maybe it is Crepuscula. Maybe we've got it totally wrong. But the isms of Sebastian Tao and Omen Darkly are exactly the same. And considering how many characters are in Derek Landy's universe and how very easily identifiable they all are from their isms, I will be very surprised if
that's why I don't think it can be another version of Skullduggery, because I think if it was another version of Skullduggery, we would know. Because remember, Cadaverous didn't even try and pretend to be Valkyrie. He was like, you'd know, like, when
it killed me. Do you know? It's because he did pretend, but it was like, when did you work it out? And because obviously, like, he's worked out that every choice is gonna end in a certain way. So at one point he was like, right, if I do this, he's going to react in that way. But he didn't do it well enough. So it's a case of what gave me away. that then obviously sets it off into different routes. I think that was really clever.
That's why I don't think Sebastian can be another Skullduggery. For that reason alone. Because also Skullduggery is Skullduggery, and Cadaver is just, or whatever is Cadaverous. I can't remember his name. Cadaver. He is enough of like this other Skullduggery, but he's very much Skullduggery still. I don't know. I just think Sebastian is very interesting. And I might just have a wild card theory, which has no bounds ever, but it's one that I want to shout out because I want to see everyone's reaction more than anything else. What if it's another Serpine? That's why he can't show his face, because Skullduggery will kill him. Just for the lols, you know? Why not?
It's actually never, and it's been never the whole time.
Ooh!
I'll be
No, he's Sebastian has to be a Darkly brother. Like, it has to be one or the other. And as I said, I will be happy if it's either of them. I'm not too fussed because they're twins at the end of the day.
Yeah, but they're very different in personality, aren't they?
They were, but I think Augur is starting to show symptomatic like omenisms now.
I think that will be. I love that. Not confident enough to be Serpine. That's true. Absolutely true. I think the thing with Augur is he's not Augur anymore, is he? He's Obsidian. He's just a big rock.
Yeah, but he didn't choose that name. See, this is another thing. He didn't choose that name. He was given that name by someone, and we don't know what he chose his name to be because that was his whole thing at his surge. Like, we don't know what's happening. He just stepped into another dimension, apparently. So, bye, see you later, I guess. But I'm interested to see the fallout of that.
Interesting. So the next thing on my list that I have is Valkyrie teaching Alice how to fight and Alice's darker moments, because we see her obviously having now had her soul put back together, struggling a little bit, and learning to fight but still feeling very sad and things like that. Did we think that was a good idea? Valkyrie teaching her sister to fight? Because I didn't.
No, she's evil.
Yeah.
Well, I think in some ways, though, with the amount of danger that Valkyrie's in, and people know that her sister would be a pressure point, it's probably a good idea to teach her to at least defend herself, even if they don't teach her magic.
Yeah, just hand the child a gun. You're fine. Just hand your sister a gun. You know, I mean, she didn't do that. She might as well have done. Like, here you go. I'm going to teach you how to pull the trigger so you can beat me up later. Like, why? Like, sorry, I have a real bee on my bonnet about fucking Alice.
Have you? I hadn't noticed for the 6 months that we've had to deal with it. No, of course not.
Like, why? Why would you teach her how to fight? Just like let her get captured and die. Like, you'll be better off.
Get captured. She's already let her die once.
Yeah.
She kind of killed her once.
Just There's a little bit of killing.
It was, yeah. Yeah. Don't teach her how to fight. She'll be fine.
No. And next on my list is Coda fucking Quell. I straight up thought this was the White Cleaver to begin with, and then realised that no, it's just a standard Ripper. I don't know what Derek Landy's issue with ex-boyfriends is, but I find it hilarious that Coda got an entire storyline to just die at the end as an angsty teen boy, basically.
See,
what was that about?
It was kind of funny though at the same time, just to see how like cleavers deal in the real world, otherwise known as they cannot deal in the real world.
Yeah. The thing is, again, I don't want to talk about Grimoire because it's like, you know, next week. But there's literally a bit in there where they discuss how cleavers trying to acclimate to civilian life really struggle. And I was like, you don't say. And like, it was really interesting to me that he was like, oh yeah, no, I'm done now. We've done what we needed to do. She said she loved me, but she's wrong. It's not that. It's just that, you know, I was just here to teach her, so I'm ready to move on. And then months later, he's like, you know what? I do love her. And it's like, it's not that actually what you're doing is really boring and that you want a new challenge. It's just that, you know, you miss Valkyrie. She's just that great a girlfriend, even though you weren't actually together. You just happened to live together. And like that whole thing was so bizarre. The way he fixated on her was so bizarre. But I really, really enjoyed the setup of being in his head the entire time that he's like executing people and being like, I said no because I knew yes would scare them, and then killing them anyway. So for Melissa to be like, Valkyrie told me you always lie before you attack. And it's like, yeah, I'm not an idiot. Like, you're like, I don't know if you know this about me. My power is insight. So I can tell you're lying from here, kind of thing. I thought that was really cool.
What gets me as well is, don't they say that you become a Ripper because after 33 years or something, isn't it? The cleaver training starts.
You retire at 32 because it's too physically demanding.
Yeah. So then after that, obviously sorcerers live for what? Hundreds of years. So now how many are people out there, like sorcerers are there out there, who are completely and utterly emotionally damaged and unable to do anything?
I think most of them are dead. I think that's the whole point, is if they're like footballers, right? They're either becoming pundits or they're dead. There is no in between.
Or they're running security until Tanith runs them through because she's stealing Godkiller weapons.
Classic.
Or Skullduggery and Valkyrie end up killing them somehow.
Yep.
Or something.
But it does also explain why Valkyrie is such a good fighter. Because, trained by an ex-cleaver.
Yeah, but then he didn't give her cleaver training because he refused.
Well, he didn't give her full cleaver training, but what he did say is like, there's nothing more I can teach you. The only way this will end is if I kill you or you kill me, because now we can guess exactly. Because it's when she pulls a move and he goes and he steps into it and then he goes, oh, she knows what my next move is going to be without me even knowing what my next move is going to be. We're done. I was like, I really liked that. And I was so disappointed that there was like this mutual respect thing. And then he turned into a psycho. I was like, look, Valkyrie is hot, right? We've all heard it. We've all seen it. She says it enough herself. Is she so hot to make every man she meets go just completely insane? Apparently so.
I feel like he was on the back foot, though, being a Ripper. I think that's almost half the point. Was he thought he was so emotionally detached, and then he realized he was emotionally attached and he had nowhere to go with it. And he almost didn't, like, he was so unaware that what he was doing was wrong in the same way most people would. I felt that was a very interesting way of looking at that storyline. I was also very confused as why it was in there, and it also very much confused me that we were in the future, but then suddenly we were in the past because Xena was still a puppy, which adorable. And I was like, why are we here? What is the because he was going to try and kill. Right, okay, so that was the only reason this whole thing was okay, cool.
Yeah, and like that also felt like really bizarrely convenient that, okay, we've got this entire storyline so that Melitza and Valkyrie break up. We don't see the breakup. What we see is Valkyrie way too chill about having just broken up with Melitza.
Yep.
You find out more about why they broke up in the next book, just as an FYI.
No, but that's not the point. If you're going to do it, like Derek Landy is not one to do stuff off screen, and if he does it on purpose, which, like, fair enough, if that's going to come up in the next book, that's going to come up in the next book. And I also get that Valkyrie being that chill in general about what's happening is really suspicious. Like, that's meant to show you that she is unwell, as Lizzie and I would say. So that whole thing was really interesting, but the fact that they trust each other enough that Valkyrie has told Melitza about Quell, when she hadn't even told Skullduggery about Quell. Like, I just
was very confused most of this book.
Did you not see, like, when it said, like, 6 years before? Stuff like
that?
No,
I did, but I didn't know what it was doing there.
Right.
I was just confused because I'm like, Derek Landy doesn't normally just have this here for no reason. So, like, where's the payoff? Mm. And then when the payoff happened, I was like, oh, okay, that was a lot for that.
No, that's fair enough. I've also got, I know, Becca, that you enjoy a classic reference that's in, and like pop culture references. I made a note of saying that Damocles Creed being like, I'm just a guy stood here in front of an audience telling you to trust me, or whatever it is he says, is a Notting Hill reference.
I've never seen that movie, so that went completely over my head, ironically.
Yeah, well, that's why I thought I'd bring it up, because it killed me. And I was like, Notting Hill, ? Curfew, ? Nazi-esque propaganda, totalitarianism, government driven by religion, ? Sounds a bit Taliban-y to me. I just
But
thought
see,
I'd share with you.
there was also Back to the Future references and Doctor Who references throughout as well, which I was living for. Because whenever there's a time travel thing, I'm like, someone mentioned Doctor Who, come on, please do it. And then they did. And then he also went Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of people get annoyed at like pop culture references in books because they feel like it ages the book. But what I like about this is that he doesn't just do modern ones, he also does stuff from like 30, 40 years ago, which gives it that almost timeless feel in its way. Because you're not just referencing stuff that's happening in pop culture now, it's more the stuff he also grew up with as well. So you can read this in like 30 years' time and that will still be a good reference without it being like, oh god, this is like 40 years old now, what the hell? You
Yeah.
know?
I think pop culture references in books are good if they're written well, because there are certain things that it's referenced, like for example in Avengers, I can't remember, but Hulk said something and I immediately went, oh, it just aged itself really badly because it was so badly done. I was like, I know when I watch this in like 5 years' time and that meme doesn't fucking exist anymore, it's just going to be cringe. So if a meme is done well in a book, like the Luke Skywalker thing in the last one, right? Luke Skywalker is going fucking nowhere because Star Wars is going nowhere. So that reference will work for a long time. But these like flash memes that happen and are referenced in books, I'm like, why? Because we all know
that's the key difference, isn't it? Between like a meme reference and a pop culture reference. Because once it is part of pop culture, that's fine. I think you can use it. And something that you're taught like as a writer is the only pop culture references you should ever make are ones where they are intrinsic to the world, right? We needed to know that Star Wars exists in this world, right? For us to get the Luke Skywalker thing and for them to be like, you know, let's not be sued, stuff like that. I found it funny then. I find it funny now. When you're making a meme reference, that will immediately age it because memes don't live longer than a month. And if they do, it's because it's taking a while for it to travel more than anything else. You know, like the TikTok sound at the moment, that in a year's time, people will be like, why are you still making that noise? Like, it will be cringe. So if someone in a book writes and then they picked up the smallest stick they could find and went, that's not going to be funny. It's not going to land in the same way that if someone goes, they picked up a massive stick and did a Voldemort impression, because that one of those is pop culture. One of those is a flash meme, as you said. And I just think Derek Landy only ever includes pop culture references to things he cares about. It's Star Wars, it's Doctor Who, it's Marvel, it's those things, like Notting Hill, apparently. And I think even if he doesn't necessarily care about Notting Hill, it's a funnier reference. And I think when you're writing like a young adult or middle grade book, chances are adults are going to read it too, and adults are going to know those references and they're going to pick up those things. In the same way that like when you watch a Disney film, there's going to be jokes in there specifically for adults that the kids, it goes over their heads until they're old enough to get contextually what it's about. That is a sign of good writing. And the fact that you can be like I don't specifically know what year Skullduggery Pleasant is set, right? It feels very 90s. It could, but that could just be because from my childhood, those were when like I was reading middle grade books, things like that. But there's nothing that specifically says it has to be that era. Like, we know that he's been around for hundreds of years. Again, that doesn't narrow it down. We know that he has a lot of 60s styled cars. Okay, so it's not going to be the 60s because these things are vintage. But that means it could be any time in the last 30 years. Right? Which is my entire life, my lifespan. It could be any time between then and now. And that, again, it's not so dated that you're like, oh, well, it's specifically that.
I didn't mean like specifically to Skullduggery Pleasant. I meant in general with pop
culture. No, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is like a good thing. It's the fact that Skullduggery Pleasant isn't, because.
And I think Derek Landy's done very well to avoid aging the series, because like even the first one, which was written early 2000s, I want to say
I was 11 when it came out, so it's 15 years ago.
Yeah, so it's done very well. When I read that I didn't immediately go, oh wow, this, you can tell this, like, it was very modern and it read very modern. And I think that's what I mean. I'm very impressed with Derek Landy's way of shoehorning in these references without aging his books. Yeah. And that is a real skill, because I think that's the point I'm trying to make, I guess, is that he's using pop culture in such a good way. Like the Luke Skywalker thing was hilarious. Like it was very funny. And I think the way the characters reacted around those pop culture references were good. And like the Notting Hill one, I was like, that was a real good reference to make. And anytime Doctor Who's mentioned, I have a little bit of a moment, because I love Doctor Who. So yeah, no, I like it a lot in this. It's one of the few series I think that gets away with the pop culture references in the way it does, because there are very few that manages it like well and not cringy.
Well, I think I don't tend to notice in general when it's a cultural reference, because I don't read a lot of contemporaries where that's going to be an issue. A lot of the fantasies I read are distinctly other worlds or other times. So I think urban fantasy, it's always tricky if you're going to make those references, but obviously they are more common in middle grades than anything else. But I think, yeah, I don't know, because like even like apps to a certain extent, it can be interesting if you're like, oh yeah, and then they get up WhatsApp. But if you say they message someone, it doesn't matter what app it is. And there's like, so I don't think it's difficult to navigate that, or that it's particularly clever to avoid aging it in a certain way. It's great that in this context we can be like, yeah, the references were really fun and they didn't make me feel super old about it or super cringe about it. I think it just is a facet of like his writing style is to be like, haha, enjoy this thing, you know. The other thing that I really enjoyed is how all of his books just feel like films. And like with this one in particular, with the assassination, there are so many spy political dramas that are about assassinations that are planned or didn't happen or what have you. And I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed that the plot twist was he's alive. And it's not that he wasn't dead, it's that he's alive again now.
You know, my favorite thing about the assassination was that Skullduggery Pleasant really didn't think anyone would notice that he was flying out of the place where someone was like shot. Like, okay, like you're meant to be smarter than this. And like it was just very funny that like the detective was like, yeah, no, you guys deal with it. Like I'm not as good as you. But like I know that you were there, but you must have been there because you were like doing an investigation super quick. Like that was the reason you were there. Not like, oh yeah, you were there. That's weird. Like
well, they were arbiters, so they were going to be there anyway. That was the whole point. That's how they were able to get through. For me, it wasn't the fact that they were there. And I really liked the fact that other guy was like, it was interesting that both of you looked up to the exact place that the gun was. Weird that you saw that. And like Valkyrie being like, oh yeah, I saw movement. I was like, Valkyrie, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Because you could have been like, well, yeah, like we looked up instinctually. Saying like you saw something, you've got to remember that you said that now. Like,
what got me was the fact that Skullduggery's like, I was looking around. I have no eyes. You don't know where I was looking.
Yeah, and then the fact that it comes up again later when he's like, oh, now that I have eyes, I have to think about where I'm looking. And like him like closing and squeezing his eyes shut to get his eyes to face the right way was really funny. He should just put on
sunglasses whenever he's got the face up, because then he doesn't have to worry about that. But I just love the fact that he's going, I'm not used to having eyes.
Haven't had eyes for hundreds of years. What do they do? And just like boss-eyeing it. Like, yeah, very funny. Very funny. And then I also really enjoyed the phrase Glower Tower Power. Just that was on my list. I just thought I'd let you know. I don't know if that's anything specifically, but like so the magical conference and finding sorcerers that are conning humans, considering humans are literally being turned into slaves, it's like an us versus them. The fact that there are these like low-level sorcerers just kind of like conning them really tickled me. I know it's dark, right? But it really tickled me that it's just this low level.
It was when he was like, do you want to be my assistant? And I was like, oh, you just made it worse. You just made yourself from being like mildly amusing to being super creepy in one fell swoop. And it was just Valkyrie's being like, oh, as long as you don't have to cut me in half. I was like, Valkyrie, you're like on purpose fucking with him now, which I appreciated a lot. But I just thought, you know, if you are shit at magic and the only thing you can do is like make some cards disappear, like okay, I can see why you'd capitalize on it. And yeah, it is dark, but I also super like understand why they would do it.
Also,
But,
isn't
yeah.
it that Valkyrie also really just loves that kind of magic as well anyway? So
Yeah.
it really reminded me of Lucifer because he loves that kind of thing as well. When, like Chloe's turning to him going, "You're gonna know how all of this works anyway soon. Why are you so interested in this?" And it's like, "Yeah, but I love it."
Yeah, like it's just their little nerdy little thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the whole thing was like so super cute. And the fact that she's like, well, how do we know unless we investigate? And Skulldugger's like, for God's sake, like you're an absolute child. But he was always going to pound it to her, because actually something I didn't mention about the like assassination and planning the assassination. Obviously, I hated that Fletcher was right, that she like went to Fletcher so that he would talk her out of it. But I love that the way she talks Skullduggery out of it is, we know we're the good guys because we're still having fun. This isn't fun anymore, so let's not do it. Like, let's make sure that whatever it is that happens, it will be on my head, but it will still be fun. And I was like, that was so them. It would like that argument would not have worked for anybody else, but for them, when it stops being fun, let's stop, was like a real like gambling habit type like phrase. It was just, yeah. Thoughts?
I love that the two of them work as each other's consciences in that way, that they seem to swap conscience, like who's going to be the moral high ground out of a lot of them. But also how it's sort of like, yeah, we're still going to have fun and do all of these absolutely mad things and all the rest of it. But we also have to have these conversations, and let's not do this. It wasn't even, we'll go to jail. It's just, this isn't fun.
This isn't fun anymore.
Because, I mean, jail, they're just going to get broken back out again. That's the thing. Because, like, Tanith will come along or someone and spring them. So, Skullduggery can go through walls now. You know, who could even arrest them? So it's just, this is
even the guy looking to arrest them wasn't really much of a threat. It was just kind of mildly inconvenient. And I loved when like Valkyrie dyed her hair blonde, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, like you look like you're great as a blonde." And she's like, "Blondes do have more fun. You right."
I love that she doesn't keep it.
Well, no, because it was weird. Like someone did something weird. Like someone like flirts with her in a weird way, and she's like, "You ruined it."
Also, you gotta keep the dark hair emo look.
Oh no, that was it. It was the guy that told everyone that he'd been dating Valkyrie Kane, and she was like, "Yes, baby, now come give me a kiss." And he's just like, "Oh, I'm going to die."
Why did he think he could do that? Why did he think he could get away with that? That's
because
what I want
boys are stupid.
Well, because he never thought he'd be in the same space as Valkyrie Kane. Let's be honest. He didn't think he would get caught. And then all his mates were like, "Wow, well, we see an opportunity and we're going to take it."
Typical men, isn't it? Just, we are going to watch him get beaten up and we're going to laugh about it.
Yeah. What did you think of, because like there were some like low level antagonists, I'm assuming just to kind of keep the story moving, like the mafia type peeps. I can't remember the guy's name now, but like Rain or whatever his name was. What did you think of them as antagonists?
It cracked me up that the detective was like, "I'm just trying to get him because he's got something on me." Like, that was the thing that really cracked me up, was like, yeah, I'm only here because like I have to keep him on my good side, but I kind of want him to get arrested so that I don't have to deal with him anymore. That was the thing that I enjoyed about it.
But also the fact that guy was trying to blackmail Skullduggery, that was this book, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like, did you really think that was going to end well? Did you really think you could successfully blackmail Skullduggery Pleasant and get away with it, and that he wasn't 10 steps ahead of you?
He was so polite. He was so polite to Valkyrie. I was like, I can understand if you don't want to do it, but like, you would really help me out. And that just was like, oh, you are so pathetic.
He was kind of a bit sad. And my thought is, you can blackmail people for multitudes of things. Not that you should, but you can. I don't think you should ever blackmail someone who has confessed to killing someone else.
Especially
that's
when
probably not a good idea.
Who was killed.
Yeah, this super popular, really clever detective who has always stayed on the right side of the law for the most part.
Yes.
Yeah, he killed someone, and I'm gonna tell everyone about it unless you do. What? Are you an idiot?
I do feel like no one would be surprised though.
Mm.
And it would just kind of slip through. Like it would be like one of those things. Like it'd be a comment made at a party, everyone would go silent for a couple of minutes, and then it'd be like, well, anyway, like it would be one of them. Because I feel like if out of all of them, like of course Skullduggery has killed people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
like,
it would be like, well, I'm sure he did it for a good reason anyway.
He either did it by accident or for a good reason, and that's good enough for me. And like leaving it at that, and like that is exactly like the response Valkyrie has, which is just like, I believe you. So what other response was there going to be? There was something I was going to add, and I can't remember what it is now. No, it's gone.
We haven't spoken about the new car, the Phantom.
The Phantom. That, do you know what killed me? It's like, can I drive it? Absolutely not. Like, that took me. Well, the thing that I was going to say, because obviously we mentioned briefly Cadaver, and Cadaver kind of like working with like other people, because obviously when Crepuscular and Omen start like getting involved in like solving crimes and things like that, he goes up to them as well. He was like a fascinating character like in and of himself, but the thing that killed me was his Skullduggery's response to the fact that Cadaver refused to wear a tie.
Yeah.
That are we a savage now, are we? The Croatians would be so disappointed.
Well,
yeah.
Like, what I love as well is the two of them just arguing with each other. Because isn't there a point as well where Skullduggery's like, now I realise why people don't like this when they talk?
No, he's monologuing. He's talking them through like, you're going to make this choice, and then this is going to happen, and I don't think you understand that this is a thing. And And Skullduggery's like, oh, I get it now. Yeah, fair enough.
But then carries on as always.
Oh yeah, standard. And it's that Valkyrie's just like, I found with you the best thing to do is just shut up and let you finish, because you'll get there eventually.
But as well, it's the fact that like Valkyrie had to be stuck in a car with both of them for at least like for however long that journey was, and it's like, can you imagine having been in that car? Can you imagine?
I'd have slept. I don't think I could have dealt with it any other way.
No, I think I'd just put heavy metal music and turn it up to 100 just to shut them up.
Just to shut them up.
No. I probably would have had my phone out filming it like secretly and being like, guys, do you want to see what I put up with? Or like whenever Skullduggery's annoying her too much, I'd be like, do you want to hear what you sound like? Because I've got two of you on camera right now, and this is how annoying you are. Shut it. Or something. I'd hold it over his head. I would so hold that over his head for ages and just be like this, that's blackmail material.
Yeah. So what did you think of Cadaver's ulterior motive for getting shot of the faceless ones? Not that he was like, no, this world does need to change, but like, I've got these other gods that I think would fit really nicely.
I was confused. It's another thing. I was like, wow, Skullduggery hasn't even slightly been religious, like, ever from this book, from this series I've ever seen. That hasn't even like an inclination that he might be into some kind of religion. And I understand that he like wiped his own mind for some reason, and like forgot all of that. I get that, but you'd think like the culty nature of what he's trying to do would kind of bleed over to his from his subconscious. And I kind of was like, this is how I know you're not Skullduggery, and I know that you must be some parallel Skullduggery that made very different choices, although apparently you made the same choices because that was in the part. And this is why the whole time thing really started to confuse me, because I'm like, Cadaver is doing things that, yes, Skullduggery would do, but this religious thing really came out of left field for me. I was like, that's a random like fact that has just kind of been popped in there, and I was like, I understand why. Because it was like, it's part of the plot, I get it. But it was just very much, but Skullduggery is not a religious being. He's just not. So I don't know. I felt weird about it. I also thought the gods that he was wanting to bring to Earth was also, like, that's a better future? Skullduggery, are you sure? Like, you might be a walking skeleton, but, like, most people aren't.
I just think with Skullduggery, he's a morally grey character, right? And I feel like Cadaver is just a darker grey. Like it's.
Sorry, it was Becca's comment that got me confused.
Sorry,
Then
what did you say?
yes, we are. We all are technically, but we also have skin and muscle and like organs. You know.
Yeah, but we are all technically walking skeletons. Technically.
We're a little bit more than that, but sure.
But we
Anyway,
also forget that Skullduggery is also Lord Vile, so there is that level of darkness.
That's what I'm saying. Is like he's a spectrum of darkness, isn't he? So
there's no white, it just goes grey to complete jet black, and there's nothing on the other side there.
yeah, it just confused me a little bit. Like it was fine. And that's part of the reason this book got 4 stars, because if there was a lot of stuff that I was just like, I'm not sure where I saw this coming from. And like it's fine. It wasn't bad. I was just like, this seems like a strange choice from this character we know quite well at this point. So it kind of threw me off a little bit. It's one of the things I didn't really like. And like, of course, he always had ulterior motives, but did I think it was giant death gods? No, I didn't. That didn't even cross my mind.
that was not on the bingo board.
No, it fucking wasn't, was it? Because why would there be giant death gods in the bingo board?
Not?
Like,
why not?
But then it is Skullduggery Pleasant, so I assume chaos ensues anyway. So I really shouldn't have been as surprised as I was.
I mean, there had to be other gods outside of the faceless ones. Why not death gods as well?
Yeah, but it's also like, can we just pick a villain?
Can we just pick a villain? We will, and at the end, it'll be Serpine.
Well, because there's been so many, and like Darkess is also like in the wings, like I don't know what's happening there. And then Serpine's around, he's chilling out. He's only got one hand, pissed off with life, I guess, because we also have fucking Thrasher and Scapegrace just like chilling out in the corner over there. The shittest villains of all, but the greatest villains of all. And then like now we've got these fucking death gods out of nowhere too. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just pick one. Like, which one's gonna be the biggest threat? Because I'm sure that's who we're gonna be fighting. I don't know.
I'm just sitting here and knowing.
Yeah, and that is on you for reading ahead.
I couldn't resist. Look, Abby finished it at 4:00 in the morning on day of release. At least I took 2 days.
Whichever series we do next, it can be a series that none of us have read before.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Otherwise, I just can't trust you guys not to read ahead. Can't be trusted.
It was only the series that I was going to read ahead.
Is there anything else we want to discuss regarding? Have I missed anything?
The harpy.
Oh yeah, the harpy. And the weird little growly thing that she did. What was that all about?
I was confused why she attacked Valkyrie to begin with, because it's Valkyrie. So Valkyrie attacks Valkyrie, Valkyrie on Valkyrie. Kind of hot if you think, no, I'm joking, I'm taking the piss. And then like the whole like, if we succeed, I die. Good. Thanks. Her. And then flies away and does her bit. I also thought that must have been super creepy, knowing that was in your future.
Well, one potential future.
Well, the one she keeps on going to.
The thing is, she didn't resist, and therefore that's not what happened. Can't believe that. Can't believe she's like, yeah, I'd rather take this on than my sister. What?
Well, that just shows there is some level of like depth of love for somebody out there as well.
That's fine. I understand her making a sacrifice. Of course, she made a fucking sacrifice. She always does. But was there really no way of like stopping it? I don't know.
I am concerned about Becca, control your face. I'm concerned about where Skullduggery is at the end of this book, because there's no fucking way in hell Skullduggery would allow Valkyrie to just be swanning about as a gateway for the faceless ones and be totally cool and chill with it. So what the fuck has Valkyrie done to Skullduggery? Because that's the now concern. And what about Cadaverous? Because there's 2 of them.
Cadaverous was the one that kidnapped her. You gotta get him right.
Cadaver. It's too similar, Hannah. Too similar. Which I know is the point. But I'm both of them are there. Damocles Creed is in this fucking cage. There's a kind of a death bubble in the middle of the Church of the Faceless. And like she's totally chill with this massive faceless one just chilling out in the sky. And Omen's like, what the fuck is going on? No one knows Omen. Like, just get with the program, be confused, because we all are.
But also, can we just appreciate that Cadaver chose the last name Kane? Because we haven't mentioned that he chose Kane. I really like that.
I found it odd that he then chose the man who tried to murder Valkyrie, but then also was like, yeah, Valkyrie too, you know?
No, it was kidnapped Alice, so it was to fuck with Alice. And I think the Kane thing was to fuck with Alice too.
Yeah, that's very skullduggery, isn't it? Let's be honest. That is exactly what skullduggery would do. But I am concerned about where he's chilling out right now and what's happened to him.
Because everybody else is on the run.
The return of China and Tanith was a good move too.
I'm not gonna lie, when China turned up, I did start cheering.
Yes.
It's like, finally, the cavalry is back.
The cavalry.
I am concerned.
I want to know how she broke out of her medically induced coma.
They let her out. The guy, Tanith's new boyfriend, went and let her out.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that. I was just like, oh, yeah, it was just, I know that, like, there was something.
It was a throwaway line. It was literally a throwaway line where it was like, Tanith sent what's his face to wake me up.
Oberon,
yeah. So I could get you out of jail or whatever. It was a very throwaway thing. China said it very quickly and was like, right, now we gotta run. Like, we can't chill. We gotta go.
Can't chill. Gotta go.
I also found it very funny in the bit with in the cathedral where it was Valkyrie's guard having a chat about his best friend and the other guard being like, oh yeah, it's always about this guy. That whole like back and forth, very much amused.
Can we also appreciate that they tried to build the scepter again and it just exploded?
It's like, yeah, not that easy. It's never going to be that easy.
Of course not. That would have been far too simple.
Convenient too. I don't think I'd have believed it if they were like, oh yeah, no, we can put this back together. That's fine. It's not a problem.
What about Darkess being trapped by Commander Hawk?
I don't think she's trapped. I think this is another one of those instances where she may have like been subdued for a second, but because the book then basically ends after that, I'm like, nah, she's like, either it's taken her by surprise and she's like, okay, let's see what happens, because she's been known to do that before, or it's a case of she's going to finally learn what human life means to her, if it means anything. But I'm not worried that she won't be able to get herself out.
I'm not worried about her. I want to know what Commander Hawk's ulterior motive is for trapping her in the first place. Because Hawk is not a good man. So there has to be a reason, and like his whole deal with trapping like Sebastian and the rest of the Darkest Society, I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit below the belt, really, Hawk, but chill, like that's you all over. So then when Darkest, I'm like, Hawk, you're just gonna die. You're gonna be literally taken apart and made into atoms, and everyone will forget you exist. But why have you done this?
I hope she turns him into a toilet.
That would be great, yeah.
And gives him just enough sentience to realise he's a toilet.
But I love Sebastian in that moment, though, of being like in the cells, and then the guy that tried to kill him is brought in and tries to sell out again. Sebastian's just watching this whole thing like, when will people learn?
It's like, oh, you're an idiot. Sweet.
So I'm interested to see the play out of that. I don't know what else to say. I can't remember anything else that happened.
Okay, so in which case, let's talk predictions for the next book, because obviously Lizzie's copy is here. Well, no, one of Lizzie's copies is here. You've got another one that we're picking up on Monday at the signing. This one we're actually giving away. So if you're paying attention, you will know there is a particular phrase that Valkyrie and Skullduggery Pleasant use when violence is about to ensue, and it involves some sparrows. So if you would like to win a signed limited edition copy of Skullduggery Pleasant, in the comments down below and on Twitter, because I will also be posting it there, you need to tell me in which direction the sparrows fly to enter. That's literally it. That's all you've got to do is answer that question. But I obviously have the blurb for the next one. So we have the bad guys have won. The faceless ones have returned to our universe. With the end of everything just days away and no longer able to rely on Valkyrie Kane, Skullduggery must make allies of enemies if he's going to stand any chance of saving what's left of the world. And just when things are looking their bleakest, they manage to get even worse, with Omen Darkly suddenly having to step up when his brother, the Chosen One, falls. There's a lot going on. Most of it is bad. Sorry about that. The second cycle of internationally best-selling Skullduggery Pleasant series comes to a thrilling end as Skullduggery and Valkyrie fight to save the entire universe. You are not ready.
I'm not.
You're not.
Signature.
No, I'm not ready. I'm convinced I'm not ready because I was so stressed at the end of Dead or Alive that I know I'm going to be stressed the entire time up until the end, and I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know the faceless ones are going to come back because, like, that image when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting portal image. Like, awesome."
It's the world. It's the creepy leg and hands behind that does it for me, and then it's the description of eyes widening. Valkyrie launched herself upwards, the wind ripping at her hair, and a beam of energy as wide as an ocean liner streamed by beneath her. It's war now, baby, she whispered to the world.
I hope people die. That sounds bleak. But
No,
but hear me out. I love writers who kill characters that people love because it's so ballsy. It is so ballsy. Like, okay, when they killed Clara Oswald off in Doctor Who, I had a cheer in my heart because I was like, they actually killed someone. Oh no, they went back on it. I'm like, if you're going, and I really enjoy that it happens because it's like, yeah, we know you care about them, but in the real world, people die too. So I kind of hope someone dies. I hope it's not Omen, and I hope it's not. Well, I don't know. If Valkyrie died, I'd feel that is quite a nice ending for her. Like, I wouldn't be upset. So I feel like if anyone's gonna die, I would think it might be Valkyrie. But you know, that's just my own personal thing because I'm a gremlin and
I do enjoy when a character kills off a popular character because you're right, it is ballsy, and it's less ballsy when they go, ha, joke, he's back. That's less ballsy. I think it will be interesting to see because I don't think it will be Valkyrie or Skullduggery, right? But it will be interesting to see who they care about coming to a swift, probs, brutal end. Because Derek Landy is not someone who lets his characters die gently.
No.
Like, when have either been stabbed in the back or poisoned or like tormented.
But it was brutal when Luke Skywalker died because he goes into a chasm and gets ripped apart. And I was like, that you did not deserve that. You had a stupid name and yet you died so brutally. That was unfair.
You think, like, if you think of the way like Ghastly and
Anton,
yeah, like
Saracen.
Yeah. Brutal.
So like, I know people do die in this series. And this is the culmination. So people should, as we've seen, die. Like, someone will die. When Ghastly died, that was horrible. That was heart-wrenching. And I was like, oh, so Derek Landy isn't a pussy and he will kill off people. That's great to know. So I'm kind of waiting to see who will die. That's kind of what I'm going in for. And if no one does, I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, but like, it won't make it a bad series and it won't make it a bad book. But I expect something big to happen, like a major character death.
Yeah. I kind of wish that I had thought about this earlier on because I can't reread the series just yet. I can't do it. But I would love to reread it at some point and then put like a different coloured tab for every death. So it would be like blue if they're like just casual civilians dying, right? Or like sorcerers dying, people don't care about. Green if they get a line, like they were like a vocal extra. Red if it's a character I give a shit about. Like, and just to see how many characters actually die, because I know that I've seen pictures where people have posted every time someone in Game of Thrones dies, and it's like almost like every page is tabbed, and it's not necessarily that every page is tabbed, but it looks like it is. And I feel like Skullduggery Pleasant would give it a good run for its money.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I'm thinking.
Mm.
I'm also excited. If Thrasher and Scapegrace are not in this book, I'm going to riot. And if
I miss them.
This is
their own spin-off.
Well, I don't want to read until the end, like today and tomorrow. So on Monday, if Thrasher and Scapegrace aren't there, I can ask Derek Landy to explain to me why Thrasher and Scapegrace were not in this book.
It's because they're in the Mauritius having a lovely romantic honeymoon together. That's what it is. That's what I will tell myself.
I just love them because they're so stupid.
They are cute. They are cute. I just need to dip out for like 1 second.
I'm confused.
Hmm.
Oh, we've been left on our own.
Riot!
No, I'm very excited to read until the end.
Oh,
But I'm in the middle of Grimoire at the moment. So I'm still...
Yeah, the Grimoire had me screaming at the end. Because that story's going somewhere.
Mm.
And then, if Abby was here, she would attest to this. I would shouting in big capital letters in our Twitter DMs as I finished the book, and throughout it I was going, "What? Plot twist? What?" like 4 or 5 times. I was just like, "What?" And she was going, "Yeah." And I was like, "What?" There is
I'm scared.
There are plot twists of whiplash variety.
Yeah. Yeah, but I felt that way through Dead or Alive, so I'm assuming that will carry on.
But the final line, I was so emotional reading the final chapter. That's all I'll say. Yeah. And then, when you get to the final chapter, don't forget to flip over the page. There is a small message at the back of the book.
Oh.
Yeah. Which I accidentally read first because I was checking how many pages it was. So I read the final line.
As bad as each other, honestly. Yeah. Looking at the last pages.
Because I was like, right, I want to get through halfway through this book on day 1. So I had to check it out so I could do the Google. But then I was like, oh God, I've just seen the final line of this book, which was a major spoiler. And I was like, how in the hell did we get from there to there? It was that kind of moment. And then the final line.
About the final line?
Yeah. Of the final book. Yeah. Have you seen the final line?
Yeah.
Hannah fucking opened it, and it's also she just turned to the back. Oh, I've just read the final line. Why the fuck would you do that, Hannah? Why?
You know what? I think to hear it, it wasn't even like it was a conscious thing. So I have a really bad habit. If it's part of a series and I've just got the new copy, so I'll do the thing where I was looking at the thing, and I was looking at the inside pages, and I was doing all this, and I was looking to see, okay, well, it's white on the cover, that's really nice, da-da-da-da. And then I'm having a look at the back, and I'm looking at his little description, and then I saw this thing at the back where it says Skullduggery Pleasant will return, and all this other stuff, da-da-da-da. And then I was like, oh, there's the last line.
Yeah. That's what I did. I went, how did we get from here to there? But then I saw that last message at the end, and then I went, Landy, you sneaky asshole.
See, did you notice even when you did that, I clapped my hands in my ears and I closed my eyes, so I don't know. I still don't know because I'm on a moral high ground. No, I'm not. I just don't want to know any spoilers.
I have so many theories now about what's
we'll discuss it next time, Becca.
It's holding it in is so difficult. I've told my mother everything. Apart from some plot twists. I haven't told her some plot twists.
You need to learn. You need to learn to hold it in.
She's reading the Chronicles of St. Mary's right now. By the time she gets through this series again...
Oh, yeah. The series that Becca recommended for our next read-along that's 27 books long.
It's not. It's 12.
That's still quite long. We want to do
what was the series then that you put on? You put one of them... sorry, Kieran's just sent me a very funny text that isn't very funny for Lizzie at all, which is that Lizzie can't reach the moral high ground, it's too high. Brutal.
I mean, it's true, but ow.
No, there was a read along that you suggested that was 20 books long, so I've just got our little spreadsheet up. You couldn't see that. That was how many books it was.
I know I suggested Sandman.
Oh, Fables by Bill Willingham, that's 22 books long. It's not happening, Becca.
Novels. It's graphic novels.
Still not happening. Still not happening.
Fair enough. I'll carry on reading it by myself then.
You enjoy.
Yeah. It is fun.
We want to do a trilogy next, I think.
Probably safest. Trilogy
Yeah.
or quadrilogy, probably.
Yeah.
Duology
Yeah.
if we're feeling spicy.
Cool.
Well, I was going to say, you keep on mentioning Kings of the Wild, and you keep on saying that it's very similar to Skullduggery in the sense of banter and all the rest of it.
Yeah, writing style is completely different in actual narrative because it's high fantasy and it's historical high fantasy. But it is great D&D vibes. But I read it very recently. So if you guys want to do a read along of that, go right ahead. I will be fully in the comments supporting you. But I cannot read that first book again.
No, I read it. I read it more recently than you did.
Mm-hmm.
It's good though. It is very good.
Very good. We'll work it out. But I don't think there's anything else we need to add because otherwise I will end up spoiling things and I really don't mean to. So is there anything you want to shout out before we disappear?
Oh, I'm doing reading sprints in like an hour and a half with Hannah. If people want to read, the last book in the Skullduggery Pleasant series or something. I don't know.
Or something.
Because that's what I'll be doing. Yeah, at 6:30 today. And I'm sure again in the future.
Fair enough. Becca?
My Etsy store is currently closed as part of the Etsy strike, but it will be opening again on Monday, I think it is, and I will have new stuff coming up on there, which is bookish bullet journal stuff and bookish merch kind of stuff as well on there, and my Redbubble should be up by the end of the month, so yay.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm just going to remind everyone to comment down below which direction sparrows fly if you want to enter to win this signed edition and to treat yourself to something from Waypoint because it supports me and my content. Other than that, I hope we all have a really nice afternoon and I will see you in about an hour and a half over on Liz's channel. And then I'm going to click bye-bye.